Hello, everybody, and welcome to Your Overseas Home and our special webinar today, all about uh, Madeira, that wonderful island off the coast of Portugal. Well, it's a little bit further down, but it's certainly in the Atlantic, and it's a wonderful place. I've been there a couple of times. And I have to say, it would be one of the places I would seriously consider moving to. And I'm joined today by on this webinar by John Mather, who is from Émigré, and he's going to be giving a presentation all about the appeal of Madeira, how to buy there, why to buy there. And we also have plenty of time for your questions as well. So do please put your questions into the questions tab on the right-hand side. So let me just firstly welcome John and ask John just to say a little bit about him and Émigré.
Do you want me to say?
Yes. Me? Yes. Over to you just to say a little bit about yourself first.
Chris and I know one another for a number of years. I started my career in financial planning and owned a wealth management company for just 50 years. And property was a big part of our business. We were buying properties for large pension funds and small ones as well. So we've done about 700 property transactions in that career. But I moved here in 2020 to retire. And spotted a bit of a problem with the way in which people were being dealt with. And we just decided to get some solutions together and help people hold their hand through the whole process of moving, because otherwise it can be quite daunting. And we've been doing this now for coming on for 3.5, 4 years and having some fun with it. There's only two of us. It's a very small business, but essentially we're buyer's agents. We help the buyer, not the seller, to acquire property. But we also add in recruiting your team to get all the agencies working together to make sure you're right first time with your buy. That's what we do. So, and it's been fun.
Excellent, fantastic. Now I didn't know Madeira a bit, and I know that John's office is in that lovely bit right in the centre of Funchal. So you can just pop down to that lovely market for your lunch, I imagine. And there's a picture of there's a statue of Lord Baden-Powell just around the corner from me, I believe, which just sort of shows how the long ties that Britain has had with Madeira.
Oh, yeah, well, it goes back a long way. We've even got a number of Churchill hotels as well. So.
Oh yes, he enjoyed painting there, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, well, look, I'm going to let you loose with your presentation. Do please throw any questions into the questions tab, and we'll see if we can get them answered in time. And if we don't, John will contact you directly to answer your questions. So over to you, John.
Okay. Well, very very simply, as I was saying, that when you first come here, you decide you want to contemplate moving, you've got to think about the visa, the tax, the conveyance, buying a property. Then you come across the problem that there's actually about 2,000 registered real estate agents here, and they would prefer that you buy from their listings, not the whole market. So I thought it was rather crazy that people were taking the advice of the person responsible for selling on good terms for their client. Why you take advice there? I think there is need for somebody acting on your behalf. And since I'd owned half a dozen estate agents within the wealth management business, quite enjoyed dealing with that side of the business, I thought that was this simple business that I could actually be effective at. So there are two of us in the business. Jessie is local. She's a mountain guide as well. She's only 30 years old, and today she's buying her first house. So it's quite a monumental day for her too. I don't imagine we'll get much bigger than that. We handle probably three cases a month is about what we handle. 4, we'd be pushing it on time to do it properly, but that's what happens. Now the island itself is it's south of the mainland Portugal, and it's level with about Casablanca. So we finish up temperature-wise and climate-wise. We're about 330 days of sunshine a year, it seldom goes above 30 and it seldom goes below 18 in winter. At night it might go down to 10 down on the coast. Obviously on the mountains, because this is a volcanic place, we actually had snow the other week, but not enough to raise a snowball. So despite it only being 57 kilometers by 22 kilometers, there's lots of variety here. So to give you a bit of a clue as to how the island fits together, the whole population is 240,000. If we start in the west, which is to the right of your screen there, that area is more rural. Quite a lot of farming goes on there. The popular areas for tourists and newcomers is on the south coast. That's where it's warmer. There are 5 microclimates going along that coast, and it really depends what sort of style of property you want. Funchal itself has about half the population in Funchal. That's the brown coloured. I can't point with this screen, unfortunately. That's the brown area there, and that's the city. It's the city centres there. Lots of the entertainment is there. The next one along is the green one. That's Câmara de Lobos. That's the second largest. There's about 60,000 people there, and then the rest of the population scattered all over the rest of the island. Going east to west, the further west you go, for instance, Ponta del Sol is probably the sunniest, but it's still quite rural and it's quite sparsely populated. So you do have to drive everywhere to get to facilities and things. And the north coast is really quite rugged. The Atlantic isn't too kind to that coast. It's not really somewhere you go swimming a lot. But some people love that sort of Scottish feeling, I suppose it is. So plenty of variety. In terms of infrastructure, first lesson, compare with England, it works. We have lots of useful facilities here. The picture there of that large building, that's the new hospital being built. 350 million euros worth of Brussels money, thank you very much. Our health service is pretty good anyway, but that new teaching hospital, which comes on stream in about 18 months' time, will make it even better, even better. The people are very friendly. I don't know why they tolerate us, but they do. Majority speak English very well because the tourist industry is so strong here. It's over 40% of the economy, and it's booming at tourism side. People want a safe place to come and stay and live in this troubled world, and here really we're left alone to ourselves and really quite happy with that. Cost of living, this is where you really feel the difference, because I can't increase your income necessarily, but what I can do is reduce your expenditure. And it's quite surprising. Compared with the UK generally, consumer prices are 36% less. Compared with London, it's 66% less. So rental prices are higher in London, and they're higher restaurant prices. They're higher groceries in the UK. Our energy costs are lower here. What does that mean in real terms? Well, the Lifetime Savings Association in London says for a successful and comfortable lifestyle, you should have an income of 54,000 a year. That's 63,000 euros. If I just compare paying the full amount of tax you could pay if you don't do planning here, and compare with the UK, then in fact, that'll net down to about the same, about 4,000 euros a month, 3,400 pounds a month of net income. I don't know how much your domestic expenses are, but it's hard here to spend more than about 3,000. So compared, if you had the same expenditure in the UK, I think you'd find that you couldn't save or accumulate any more in the UK, but here you could accumulate about 1,000 a month, that sort of figure. So that's where you feel it in your discretionary spend. So there's, again, in slightly different terms, that's where the saving is. And I think that's a comforting thing in these troubled times when cost of living is going up in the UK quite dramatically, isn't it? It's known for its culinary arts. The diet is pretty healthy. It's very heavy fish content. The wine is exceptionally good. In fact, the 1787, wasn't it? The American Constitution was toasted in Madeira wine. Yeah, 17th of September, if I recall right. So it's a famous wine. There's plenty of it. There's plenty of vineyards here, and there's lots of choices of good wines from Portugal. Wines are remarkably inexpensive. You can get quite a decent bottle of wine for about €5. There aren't the taxes on the wines here, so that's useful. The lifestyle tends to be pretty active. Depends as active as you want. Not everybody wants to go canyoning and climbing mountains, but the levadas are very popular. That's a series of water channels that bring the water down from the mountains through the irrigation channels, through the various fields that people still farm, through the banana layer, which is quite a strong market here for bananas. Cycling is very popular as well. Infrastructure-wise, for the last 30 years, the island has been transformed. There are very good arterial roads, not many of them, but what there are good. Because it's volcanic, they drive the roads through tunnels, and those tunnels must have cost a fortune, but they're beautifully engineered, and the roads are not too crowded as well. So plenty of good infrastructure, plenty of road systems. From an entertainment point of view, the arts are still pretty strong. There are 3 orchestras on island. We've just celebrated the 60th anniversary of the 57-piece orchestra, which is supported by the Aga Khan Foundation as well. Virtually every month there is one festival or another. The Flower Festival is very popular, and the fireworks at Christmas and New Year are world class. So plenty of entertainment there. Popular routes to residence. Since we changed the rules in 2016 and 2020, we can no longer stay year-round freely within Europe. So we're limited to 90 days on a rolling 180-day basis. If you want to become more resident here, other than just a holiday home, that you can only visit for 6 months a year, then in fact you contemplate a visa. And you should seriously contemplate electing to be tax resident in Madeira rather than tax resident in the UK. In most instances, it is easier to get the living standard right and the living cost right, but you don't want to be limited to only half the year. The D7 visa is very popular, and that's where you have to prove something like say €1,500 a month of income coming from, say, pensions from the UK. And after 5 years of that, you can apply for a passport, and or in fact, if you don't want a passport, just to continue and roll over another 5-year visa. That we can help you with. We can introduce you to the right people, the right lawyers, to make sure you're getting all that sorted out properly. So here I've just summarized some of the costs there. The entrepreneur's visa is actually also becoming more popular. This is where you actually want to come here and employ some people, starting a business here maybe. There's plenty of opportunity to do that. The D7 visa, the simplest of all and probably the cheapest of all to get, €820 a month of income to be proven. That's the minimum wage. Well, in fact, the minimum wage on Madeira is €850 a month. And the second applicant, 410. And if you're bringing along minor children under 18, 205 for them a month. So you're not really showing very high income to be able to become resident. They'll do allow for inflation on the money. That will go up a little bit, and you need to be a little concerned if all your income's coming from pounds. If the pound declines, we might have to give some service there and see how we resolve that issue. So, a bit of a whistle-stop tour. If in fact you can't come for, say, 5 years, don't make the mistake of assuming the law will still be the same 5 years from now. We've learnt in the last 18 months that the property was taken out of the golden visa. as one of the ways of getting in. It's still possible to have a golden visa and secure and freeze the legislation on residence, but they're now in funds. And since I was in that business for 50 years, I've looked at most of the funds. There's about 30 of them, and judged which one I'd put my money into if I was going to do that. I was also a director of a hedge fund for a while, so I do understand some of the economics and the charging structures on these arrangements. So that historic knowledge holds me in good stead. What we were saying 15 years ago about the UK economy is now with us, and sadly, I think it's going to be worse before it gets better. It's taken you 20 years to make a mess of the economy, and it'll probably take longer to get out of it. So that's rather sad. So downsizing as well. If you're going to downsize, that can boost your discretionary income significantly. Okay, Chris, I think that's the
fantastic thing. Okay, great. So I guess people will wonder, okay, how can I? What's your role in the buying process? What does a buyer's agent do? Because it's not something we're used to.
Sorry, can I just stop coming at the door? I'm sorry. You can tell this is live, can't you?
Well, yes, you can. I will. I would keep people entertained with my version of Fado, but I don't think people enjoy that. So thank you.
Sorry, we had a situation that it's rather like the plumber. The guy phones you up and
that's all right. I have a motorbike going past me, very noisy. No. Yes, so I was asking about buyer's agents. It's not something we particularly have in the UK, although I know there's quite a lot of Americans who are interested in Madeira. So tell us what's the role of the buyer's agent? How do you help us?
Right. Well, you need to try and understand. Get somebody to do the research with you of what you want, refine what you want, and then we will do the research, narrow down the field. I mean, typically we will start with 40 properties that fit your criteria. We'll then narrow that down to 10 of the best of the 40. And what we'll do, we'll be going across all the agents on all the agencies, not just, we don't have a sales book, right? We go to other people. We'll then recruit one sales agent for you who can then work with us on finding the ideal one. And when they go around, and then clients tell us, don't show us something as awful as that again. We love this. And eventually we work with you till you found what you want. We'll make sure you're prepared for that. We'll introduce you to a good lawyer, a good management firm who can do your fiscal representation with. We will make sure they've got in-house lawyers so they can do the conveyancing. So a one-stop shop is normally the best. And there are plenty of people offering that. We deal with 3 of those management companies predominantly because we know they're exceptionally good. For instance, I interviewed 14 accounting firms before I chose one for myself. And I'm very pleased with the one I've got. And there are 2 others that I would have been equally pleased with. So finding those things. Now, we charge you need to know about charges. We charge 1% of the purchase price of what you get. And I'm quite pleased that we save our clients between 2 and 5 times what we cost them. Nobody can guess what the house price is going to be within 1%. Nobody can. And certainly, we've just done one, for instance. We spotted it. It was not on any listings of agents. We did our appraisal of the property. We came out at 770,000. But it was not, they were trying to avoid paying the 5 or 6% commissions, the seller was, to an agent. Well, we managed to we offered at 700,000. We finally got it for 710. Now, okay, we've charged 7,000 for doing that service. The client has made 60-odd thousand on that saving alone. And we did that quicker than they thought. They thought we were going to take 3 months. We actually did the whole thing within 6 weeks, start to finish. So save your time, make sure you get in the right job, make sure you get in the right lawyers who will check things out, make sure you're not being sold something at an exorbitant price I mean, for instance, in good quality properties here, they range typically from about 3,800 to 6,000 euros a square meter. Most of our clients are paying something like 4,500 a square meter, and we're not paying the fancy 6,000. There's no justification for it. But if you don't know what's happening, then people get sold something a little on the top side, don't they?
So in terms of putting that into say a 2-bedroom apartment, what would be a good starting budget for a nice 2-bedroom apartment?
It depends which of those areas you want to live in that suits you. If you're in the center of Funchal, you'll be between 500 and 600 for a quality property of something like 160 square meters. If you go 10 minutes drive away to Kamerlobos, that's 25% less. If you go all the way to Canito, where the German market is very strong, you'll be paying 5,000 a square meter for some. Now that's because the Germans have just driven the price up there, which is crazy. If we go to the Mexico side, we probably get that for 250, 260, but that's a quieter rural area. In the far north, you'll get it even cheaper, and that's difficult to give you a percentage on because it's down to just finding the right job there, really. And then building your own property. We've even found plots of land for clients. The difficulty there is getting a good builder because there's lots of building work going on. So there's a shortage of builders here at the moment. So.
Okay, and how about traveling to Madeira? Because I guess the risk with an island is you might think, well, you might not be able to get there in winter, as you can't get to some of the Greek islands, for example, less easy. How is travel to Madeira?
No, travel's fine. There's plenty of there's hundreds of planes a week from mainly all over Europe, and even now some direct from the United States going into Boston and also into New York. So, and you can actually just go to the Azores and get even more things into Canada. Okay. But the British Airways flights are direct from the UK. The infrastructure is pretty good. I mean, our travel budget is bigger than our domestic expense budget here because of the way in which the cost of living works. Leaving the island here, for instance, we found it was really quite nice to get to Milan, take the train all the way to Venice, do the Verona Opera Festival, that sort of thing. Very cheap running. Once you're a resident, going to the mainland, that's actually subsidized. You actually pay 83 euros. You pay maybe 300 euros for the flight, but then you get the money back from the government as a resident, subsidized. So it is quite a nice treat. There was a ferry running a couple of years ago. That gets a bit political because it's the subsidy from the government. They negotiate, so they've not managed to agree in the last couple of years. Hopefully that will come back. There is a second airport only 70 kilometers away in Porto Santo, which is an associated island with a long 9-kilometer sandy beach there. It's really there's only 5,000 population there, but it's very popular in summer for Madeirans going on holiday there, when the population goes up to 40,000. The trouble you'll find is from time to time, the Madeiran airport doesn't like crosswinds of a certain size. So in the winter, you'll find you just need to be careful that you don't have to be relocated to Porto Santo or something for an hour or two, or circle for a couple of hours.
Yes.
So give yourself a bit of latitude on flight delays in the winter. That's the worst that can happen.
Yeah, it has that amazing airport on stilts, goes out to sea. I remember.
Yeah, I first came out here when there weren't the stilts and it was prop planes. Yes, so.
It certainly has got fantastic infrastructure. Tell us about the healthcare options, because for anybody who's getting a D7 visa, I guess they'll need to get health insurance. But is the I mean, I can see that the hospital is going to be amazing, but it can cover anything that we would need, I imagine.
Well, first of all, the insurance side. Insurance isn't you have to have private insurance with the visa. That sounds scary until you realise the cost. The minimum cost Well, for instance, I have the Rolls Royce. Being in the insurance business, I always bought the best I could buy, in the hope that I'd lose my money, and because I never claimed. And with health insurance, I'm 76. My wife's 10 years younger. Our policy costs us just under €300 a month for a Rolls Royce scheme. I could have got that for as little as €60 if I'd done the minimum that's required by the visa. So it's not an expensive thing. The other thing, the health service works. The social services side works very well indeed. We had there's a private side as well. We've got 3 private hospitals here as well. I'll give you an example. We had a client in who had been waiting in England for a hernia operation for 2 years. And one of the questions she asked, can I get this here? Well, we didn't know. My colleague, Jessie, phoned up. She found out who was the best surgeon on the island for hernias. We had an appointment same day, 5 p.m. for that client. She went along to that, and they offered to do the operation next day, and they offered to charge €1,200. So the service is pretty good even without the teaching hospital.
Sure.
Fortunately, I don't. The other thing is we gentlemen do these tests on a regular basis. I used to have a lot of private doctors as clients in London. Something that was nearly £3,000 in England cost me about €320 here. So,
wow.
So huge difference on costs.
We've had a few questions come in. Firstly, one from Matthew, who says, okay, are there any decent 1 or 2 bedroom apartments available for under €200,000 on the south coast?
Possibly in Mexico. Possibly going around the coast to the east. It's a little more rural there. One or 2 in slightly older buildings. You just have to be a bit careful with just checking out that the condominium works well and the management company works well. That's all. But with enough time, given enough time, never say never. We do get tough challenges sometimes. We've got one chap at the moment he wants just a piece of land. He's got €60,000. Now that's tough to get there with building land to build something on, but eventually we'll find it. We've done it before. It just takes more time. Sure.
And I guess a fixer-upper, if you can get that sweet spot between needing a builder and, just being able to do a few things yourself, then I guess that's a saving.
Well, the bargains we find is where they're trying to avoid paying one of the brokerages 5 or 6% commissions, and that's plus VAT. And they advertise in the local press or the small ads or even mention something on Facebook. So we do that sort of work.
Yes.
And you'll find they tend to be the ones which are slightly mispriced. If we've not needed an agent at all involved, then in fact, we already know they've saved 5 or 6%. So they're amenable to negotiation, done in a polite but professional way.
Okay. Philip has asked about not about apartments, about villas. Where would you suggest you can get a nice sort of family villa, say 3 bedrooms with a pool, and what sort of price would be a good starting budget there?
With the pool, in Funchal, you're talking probably 800. If you go to Canada Lowbush, we're probably down at 500. If we're in Mexico, you're probably 400. I mean, it's that sort of. But certainly, it's somebody coming with. Well, most of the areas in England are over €5,000 a square meter. If you look at your own house and see how big it is, if you wanted a house that big, and we can get you down to probably 4,000, 4,500. So there's a saving. You should actually finish up replacing your house and having money in the bank.
Yeah. Okay. Sandra has asked a question about, as a US citizen, how often do you work with US citizens to purchase property? Do you have connections with lawyers who would understand US law? And she's using a golden visa.
Well, my wife's American, so that helps. We've got quite a lot of American clients who work for the American government, not in America, within Europe, who want to relocate to Portugal rather than going back to the States when they retire. So we've dealt with a lot of golden visas for those people, and there is a fund that we've isolated, which if they can't come immediately, that would be one of the options to do. The D7 still works, and the Social Security in the States is quite generous compared with the UK. So it's understanding American tax is a bit of an open question. I mean, it's depends which state you're in. There's lots of comparisons.
Okay.
I'm still a member of the International Business Structuring Association in London. So if I don't know the answer, I can tell you a man that does. But every case is bespoke. You see, that's the nice thing about the business. I don't want it to be a big business because it's not cookie cutter stuff. Everything is very individual and bespoke, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Clients
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice note to finish on because we are slightly over time.
Yeah.
I've worked in overseas property for 20 years, and for half of that time, I've known John, and I do know he has a fantastic reputation for not just efficiency, but also just really looking after clients. So I really would recommend contacting John and giving Madeira a serious consideration. I know that most people look at the Algarve automatically, but there are great alternatives to that, and they are considerably more affordable as well. So I would definitely recommend Madeira. I know there are more questions coming in. We will keep the questions, and John will be in contact, and he will answer those questions for you as soon as we've finished. So thank you once again, John. Thank you for those who have who've attended. Do check the Your Overseas Home website because we have other webinars coming up all about how to buy and tax and other matters like that. So we are your one-stop shop for everything getting involved in buying or moving to Madeira. So I was going to check. Not supposed to have done anything else. We do have a Trustpilot site. So if you found this webinar useful, do pop over to Trustpilot, and we would very much like a review. It all helps to spread the word. So thank you once again, John, and thank you for viewing, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.